Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. More candidates entered their names vying for the city's top leadership position. And Premier Jason Kenney says Alberta will have nothing to do with vaccine passports. Plus, the death toll rises to 94 as more bodies are recovered from Florida's deadly condo collapse.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Hi, thanks for joining us. Traffic on Highway 3 west of Fort Macleod has been diverted since this afternoon due to a three-car accident. At approximately 12:15 p.m. today, a serious motor vehicle collision occurred on Highway 3 approximately 3 kilometers west of Fort Macleod. The collision involved a four-door sedan, an SUV, and a pickup truck pulling a travel trailer. The lone male occupant of the sedan sustained serious injuries and was flown to an area hospital by Stars Air Ambulance. A second man who was driving the SUV was transported by EMS to an area hospital with minor injuries. The two occupants of the pickup truck and trailer were not injured. Traffic in the area is being diverted as the cause of the collision is still under investigation. You may have heard the sounds of revving engines over the weekend as Street Machine weekend activities drew large crowds on both Saturday and Sunday. Lethbridge Police Service says they needed to be extra vigilant to monitor dangerous driving behaviors. With the assistance of Alberta Sheriffs, LPS issued a total of 158 violation tickets Friday and Saturday. The majority of those tickets were issued for equipment violations and operator license issues, such as suspended or expired licenses. Friday saw 78 tickets and Saturday another 80 tickets were issued. In addition, that evening, Lethbridge Police responded to a request from Coaldale RCMP to assist in controlling an extremely large crowd of people and vehicles. The city of Lethbridge has added another mayoral candidate to its list. Colton Menzak has thrown his hat into the ring, vying for the top spot. As Micah Quinn explains, Menzak says he wants to help those who are stuck at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder.
Colton Menzak has been working on drilling rigs and earning his keep in the sport of mixed martial arts for the past 10 years. He's currently working at a heating company in Lethbridge, and he says he's running for the title of mayor because he wants a better future for the children of tomorrow.
I think that right now we're sacrificing the future for the present, and I would rather we sacrifice the present for the future so that we can progress as a society and, have a better future for our kids.
There are 6 main platforms that Menzak will be campaigning on for his run to the mayor seat come October.
So firstly, I want to lower taxes while increasing the quality of services. Number 2, I want to end homelessness. Number 3, I want to start a People Helping People program, which is going to start with a direct line to the mayor for any of your questions or concerns. You need help with something, you're having a bad day, you want to just maybe tell me I'm not doing a good job, whatever you want. Fourthly, I want to decentralize decision making, so we're not, blindly following King Kenny or King Trudeau. We'll have a more specific plan for our community and our city, not just a one-size-fits-all that came from someone thousands of miles away. Number 5, I want to bring in transparency and accountability. And number 6, I want to create infrastructure for self-sustaining resources for local consumption and self-improvement.
Menzak says there's a lot of disconnect in the current municipal government in Lethbridge.
For example, I haven't seen any alderman, mayor, nothing come around any jobs I've had, and I've worked in this city my whole life. I've lived in this city my whole life, and I just feel like I've never been involved or asked or, no one's cared about my opinion. So I just want to make sure everyone has a voice, and if you need to talk to someone, there's someone for you to talk to.
The Lethbridge municipal elections will take place on October 18th. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Thank you, Micah. An 11th name has been added to the list of those competing for an open seat on Lethbridge's City Council. BCN's Naveen Day was with Suketu Shah when he filed his nomination papers Monday morning.
Suketu Shah, who is the vice president of the Gujarati Society of Lethbridge, filed his nomination papers to run for Lethbridge City Council Monday morning. He says he decided to run because he was frustrated with his voice not being heard.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people in Lethbridge might be thinking the same thing. So that's where my slogan is as well, every voice matters. So what my main thing is that, if I'm running for the council and if I get elected as a council member, I want all of the citizens that, you know what, they can connect with me anytime by phone, by email, and put their voice together. We pay taxes for this city. We want to make our city more safe, more strong, and more better to live for our families, ourselves, and the coming generations as well.
At his campaign launch that was held at a downtown eatery Monday afternoon, Shaw shared a key element of his campaign: to make neighborhoods and parks safer for residents without increasing costs.
How can we help those homeless people? How can we make our use of our Lethbridge police services, our people who are walking around the streets right now as well, how can we make it safer that, if we use our resources in the right way, then I think there is a possibility we can make it safer, but then, it is a work.
In attendance were some well-known community members who came out to give Shaw their support.
This isn't about spending. This is about bringing the community together, but also with a focus on crime and to prevent and also create a safer community downtown, not only for the residents, but also for the children of Lethbridge. The diversity that is being brought is what we also need on City Council.
Shaw adds that enabling businesses to grow and flourish will allow them to be depended upon when the community needs help. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thank you, Naveen. Helen Schuler Nature Center is reopening their indoor exhibit experience featuring 2 new displays to check out. Resource Development Coordinator for the center, Curtis Goodman, gives us a sneak peek at what they are.
Build for Life on the Grasslands is a main gallery exhibit here at the Nature Center that features some of the iconic grassland animals that we'll find here in our biome. Taking a look at some of those really unique adaptations that make these animals so uniquely adapted to this place, from the hare and their ability to jump, to the pronghorn and their amazing speed. This exhibit is a fantastic visual feast that will help to connect you to the wildlife of our place. In our art gallery, the community art gallery space is currently featuring Manufacturing Wilderness, a fine art display by Elaine Henderson. It's an amazing feast for the eyes, taking a look at the end of the path where civilization ends and nature truly begins.
The Landscaping Wilderness Art Display is available to see until the end of the month. Built for Life on the Prairies runs until mid-October. If you live in the Copperwood area, make sure you put your car out of the garage this Friday because there will be a large-scale power outage. On Friday, July 16th, between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., electric crews will be carrying out a planned power outage affecting approximately 400 homes in the area along Coalbanks Boulevard, Twin River Crescent, Twin River Loop, Firelight Place, and Coalbanks Close. This planned outage is required to allow electric crews to move electrical lines that are in the way of the future Métis Trail south of the Coalbanks Link entrance to Copperwood. The planned outage will take approximately 6 hours. Residents should note the garage doors will not work during a power outage. It appears Alberta's Justice Minister may not disband the Lethbridge Police Service after all. The Lethbridge Police Commission says they've received a letter from Minister K.C. Madhu in response to their submission of a revamped action plan for the Lethbridge Police Service. In the response to the plan, Minister Madhu writes, quote, "I am pleased that the combined action plan outlined various action strategies and that I am pleased to say addresses my concerns and sets a positive, encouraging path forward. I appreciate the steps already taken by both the LPS and the LPC as well, which are outlined in the action plan," end quote. This spring, Madhu had ordered LPS to submit to him an action plan addressing many of the issues that have tainted public perception of the Lethbridge Police, or else he would consider dissolving the service. Rob Vance Bronson of the Lethbridge Police Commission told Bridge City News, quote, "We are pleased that the minister has accepted our addendum," end quote. The Indigenous community in St. Albert, just north of Edmonton, gathered Sunday for a Children Are Coming Home walk. The event included a welcome and a blessing for the walk to the city's Children's Bridge. A ceremony led by First Nations, Inuit, and Métis community members then took place at the Healing Garden. The program coordinator at the Institute for the Advancement of Aboriginal Women says the event was organized with the support of the city of St. Albert. A group supporting churches across the country in court challenges against COVID-19 public health orders is apologizing for hiring a private investigator to follow a Manitoba judge. John Carpe of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom says the organization hired an investigator to observe the judge. Court of Queen's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Zoal says he is deeply concerned that he was followed by a vehicle last week with the intent to find him breaking health restrictions. Carpe says it was a bad judgment to follow the judge ruling on a case involving the Justice Center. Alberta's Premier Jason Kenney was spotted flipping pancakes Monday morning in Calgary at a Stampede breakfast. When asked afterwards during a scrum, Kenney told reporters Alberta will have nothing to do with vaccine passports, saying the province has been clear that it will not bring in or accept passports to prove vaccination against COVID-19. Quebec has said vaccine passports will be needed starting in September to get into non-essential businesses in the province's COVID hotspots. Manitoba has also been issuing proof of immunization cards to residents who are 2 weeks past their booster shot, but the Alberta Premier says vaccine passports would contravene the Health Information Act.
We've been very clear from the beginning that we will not facilitate or accept vaccine passports, and that in fact we regard, I believe that they would in principle contravene the Health Information Act and also possibly the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. We also amended the Public Health Act to remove the 110-year-old power allowing Alberta to force people to be inoculated. So these folks who are concerned about mandatory vaccines have nothing to be concerned about, and there will be no vaccine passports in Alberta.
The Calgary Stampede says it's putting frontline workers at the front of the line and is offering a free admission for them and their guests for a limited time. The Stampede says the offer is for all frontline and essential workers, including first responders, healthcare workers, teachers, retail, grocery, warehouse workers, and more. The Stampede kicked off Friday, but safety measures this year include cutting daily attendance in half. The free admission offer for frontline workers lasts until Tuesday of this week. And speaking of the greatest outdoor show on earth, our poll question this week is, are you planning on attending the Calgary Stampede this year? Be sure to visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca, to vote yes or no. We'll have the results for you at the end of this week. The federal government is donating more than 17 million doses of the AstraZeneca shot and is asking Canadians to give their own money to help nations get needles into arms. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau previously pledged Canada would give back 13 million shots it was set to receive through the Global Vaccine Sharing Alliance, COVAX. The Liberal government says it will match dollar-for-dollar donations Canadians make to a UNICEF fundraising campaign called Give a Vax, for a contribution of up to $10 million. Authorities searching for victims of a deadly collapse in Florida and said Sunday they hope to conclude their painstaking work in the coming weeks. Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava said 90 deaths have now been confirmed. Actually, that's 94 as of Monday. But as of Monday, 4 more have been added to that list, and some 22 people are still missing.
We have now recovered over 14 million pounds of concrete and debris. And through our search and recovery, we have recovered additional victims since our last briefing. And our hearts and minds are always with those we've lost and with the families who are grieving and those that are still waiting.
The search and rescue teams are out there in numbers greater than I've seen all along. There continues to be heavy machinery undertaking very delicate scratching of the surfaces with our teams nearby, so they're utilizing every tool they have. The work is still so delicate that we've even found unbroken wine bottles in the rubble and recovered them. We're also finding personal possessions as small as rings, which are also being returned to the site storage area, categorized, photographed, and saved for the families.
Pfizer says it plans to meet up with top U.S. health officials Monday to discuss the drug maker's request for federal authorization of a third dose of its COVID-19 vaccine. The company says it was scheduled to have a meeting with the Food and Drug Administration and other officials today. Dr. Anthony Fauci didn't rule out the possibility of a booster shot, but said it was too soon for the government to recommend another shot. Fauci said clinical studies and laboratory data have yet to fully bear out the need for a booster of the Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Fauci also said it was quite possible in the coming months, as data evolves, that government may urge a booster for some people. Alberta's wildfire officials have reported numerous new fires in the Slave Lake Forest area over the weekend that were caused by lightning. Firefighters responded to 7 lightning-sparked fires on Saturday, and the province expected more lightning yesterday. The province says fire lookouts are on high alert and are constantly watching for smoke. It also warns that smoke from wildfires in British Columbia may drift into the Slave Lake Forest area. And speaking of which, residents of hundreds more homes around the South Okanagan Lakeside community of Okanagan Falls, BC, have been ordered to be ready to flee at any time as wildfires continue to ravage the province. The Wildfire Service says 25 fires are ranked as especially threatening and include the newly spawned Okanagan Falls blaze. The devastating fire on June 30th that destroyed the village of Lytton and another north of Kamloops have scorched 402 square kilometers of bush in just 2 weeks. Environment Canada has issued another round of heat warnings for parts of the central and southern interior that are expected to remain in place until Wednesday. Will we have heat warnings here in Alberta? I will tell you coming up right after the break with more weather details. Welcome back. Well, the temperatures continue to soar into the 30s for this week with lots of sunshine and high UV indexes as well. Into tomorrow, Tuesday, we're looking at sunshine, 29 degrees, then back up to 33 for Wednesday. Same thing for Thursday, down to 31 on Friday. Looking at a high of 29 on Saturday and back up to 33 on Sunday. So it's pretty consistent weather. It's hot and it's going to be sunny. Get out that sunscreen. Don't burn. Take frequent breaks from the sunshine if you need to as well. Average high for this time of year, 25 degrees. We've been shooting way up past that. Average low for this time of year, 10 degrees. 36 was our high temperature on this day back in 1964. And we had our lowest on this day back in 2008. It was 5 degrees only. 5:37 is when the sun rose this morning and sunset this evening right at 9:37 p.m., giving us exactly 16 hours of daylight. Seems like not that long ago we were looking at 16 hours and 15 minutes. Where did that go? Where did that time go? All those daylight hours are starting to disappear anyways. By the minute, by the second. Lots of sunshine on the west coast tomorrow, 25 in Victoria, 24 Vancouver, 29 in Edmonton, and a high of 28 over in Calgary. Lots of sunshine there as well. Edmonton still under a heat warning in effect today due to that high humidity as well. Beautiful temperatures also throughout the prairies with lots of sunshine, 28 in Saskatoon, 29 in Regina with lots of sunshine and beautiful sunny skies as well expected tomorrow in Winnipeg with a high of 29. Over in central Canada, we're looking at quite a bit of rain, 40% chance in Toronto, high 26, looking at a risk of an afternoon thunderstorm there. Chance of a thunderstorm also in Ottawa with a high of 23. 26 is the high tomorrow in Montreal, looking at a 60% chance of showers, a possibility also of a thunderstorm. 27 the high tomorrow in Fredericton with a mix of sun and cloud. Halifax, lots of sunshine, 26 the high. 26, same thing here for Charlottetown with lots of sunshine. 16 only the high in St. John's, Newfoundland. Also looking at very windy conditions. They're looking at gusts up to 70 kilometers per hour at times, diminishing to 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. So there you have it. That is your forecast for tomorrow.
Today's weather is brought to you by Jeff Reimer of Royal LePage South Country Real Estates, 403-380-1779.
The head of the Calgary Hotel Association has joined the opposition NDP in calling for an extension to a break that accommodation operators have been getting due to the pandemic. The tourism levy abatement is a 4% tax on hotels that was paused for much of last year, but it's being collected again this month. Zol Zia says it's a hard pill to swallow for some businesses that are still hurting. A provincial spokesperson says a pause is being considered, but adds that international national travel restrictions for people entering Canada need to change. Virgin Galactic's Richard Branson has reached space aboard his own winged rocket ship, vaulting the nearly 71-year-old founder past fellow billionaire and rival Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who will fly to space in a craft of his own 9 days from now.
I was once a kid with a dream, looking up to the stars. And now I'm an adult in a spaceship looking back to our beautiful Earth. To the next generation of dreamers, if we can do this, just imagine what you can do.
Really? Oh, yeah, she's ready to go again. There you go, guys. Oh, God.
And now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 24 points to 20,233. The Dow was up 126.02 to 34,996. The S&P 500 was up 15.08 to 4,385. The Nasdaq was up 31 points to 14,733. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 46 cents to 74.10 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 8 cents to 3.75 US. Gold was down 8 cents to 18.06 US an ounce. And silver was even at 26.20 US an ounce. Wheat is at $374 per metric ton. Barley is at $365. Canola is at $889. Corn is at $405 per metric ton. Live cattle were up 60 cents to $119.83. Feeder cattle were down $1.03 to $158.15. Lean hogs were up $2.50 to $104.08. And the Canadian dollar was even today at 80.30 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is apologizing for his poor judgment in hiring a private investigator to follow Manitoba's Court of Queen's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal. John Carpe's group is supporting several Canadian churches in court challenges against COVID-19 public health orders, and he says it has organized surveillance on a number of public officials across the country. Justice Joyal says the group was hoping to gather potentially embarrassing information about his own compliance with COVID public health restrictions, and that he is deeply concerned and troubled by the incident. Coming up, I speak with a financial planner about how you should be thinking about retirement, and here's a hint: it's more than just about money.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Looking for some summer fun and faith-filled adventures for your kids? Park Meadows Baptist Church presents Treasured Vacation Bible School, taking place July 26th to the 30th from 9 to 11:30 a.m. each day. Your kids will embark on an epic quest through hidden ruins and ancient caves to discover that they are God's greatest treasure. Cost is $10 per child and open to kids ages 4 to 11. For more information and to register, visit parkmeadowschurch.ca. The Southern Alberta Ethnic Association is excited to present Latin Fest on Saturday, July 17th from noon to 7 p.m. at the Multicultural Center. Experience Latin flavors, culture, and fun. Enjoy delicious food, dancing, music, and so much more. Admission is free with food and beverages available for purchase. For more information, visit saea.ca or call 403-320-1577. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
Well, as we grow older and retirement age begins to approach, most of us turn our thoughts to how much money will I need to live out the rest of my life. But are there far more important issues to consider when it comes to retirement? Well, joining us today is Alex Lippert, one of the co-founders of Steadfast Wealth, a company which has assets under advisement of nearly $1 billion. He is also the co-author of the book After Work, an honest discussion about the retirement lie and how to live a future worthy of dreams. He's joining us from Colorado Springs. Welcome to Bridge City News, Alex. So great to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks so much. Great to be here.
Yeah, well, what an interesting title for a book. Can you maybe first of all, you don't look anywhere close to retirement age yourself, but so how did you come to write this book? You're obviously a financial planner. You work with people close to retirement, right?
Yeah, so being a financial planner now for almost 11 years, it's really led to so many just direct observations and a lot of insights into, folks' kind of psychological side as they approach and get into retirement, and kind of what happens beyond the financial side. The financial piece of the equation is really important. Obviously, that's my career. But time after time, there were so many folks who, they have all of the financial side covered completely. They don't have any problems, living out their lives, doing whatever they want to do from a financial standpoint. But a lot of them end up unhappy and find themselves lost in retirement. And that's a curiosity that I wanted to explore with the book. And so that's kind of the genesis of the book.
Sounds like it. So in the book, you mention the retirement lie. So can you tell us what the retirement lie is? What does our cultural mindset get wrong about retirement?
Yeah, the retirement lie is that a withdrawn, kind of self-centered one is a good one. So there's this narrative that permeates our society that says, hey, you've put in time, you've put in effort, you've raised children, you've poured into other people's lives, you've poured into the company that you've worked for, your entire career. Now it's time for you. Now it's time to sail off into the sunset and vacation and play golf and all these different things that are fun that I think do have a place in your life. But I think, that cannot be the entree. That can only be the garnish. The fun stuff can be the garnish, but you really need to focus on purpose and fulfillment and, finding work after work, even if it's not quote unquote work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned right off the top, it's psychological too. Now, you regularly advise people about financial planning for retirement. Obviously, that's what you do. And you've heard of a lot of personal stories, I'm sure, as you've come to know your clients over the years. But once people retire and have a lot of free time on their hands, do they often lose their sense of purpose, perhaps part of their identity?
Yes, they absolutely do. And I think it takes a lot of intentional thought before stepping away from work or before becoming an empty nester. Some of these milestone moments where you've been busy, busy, busy. And even if you haven't necessarily been fulfilled, you're almost tricked into thinking you're fulfilled just because there's so much on your plate in any one given time. But as soon as you step out of that kind of life madness, if you will, and into that time where you do have all of this extra time, if you're not intentional about, where am I going and what's my next purpose center, like where am I going to feel that, like I did a lot of good work today, regardless of what that work is, where is that going to come from?
Yeah, there comes that sense of purpose and meaning, and back to the lie. So how do people get out of that lie, so to speak?
Yeah, well, the first step, I think, is just to examine the word retire and retirement. You come up with a lot of interesting synonyms, retreat, withdraw. All of these words that sound terrible, right? So don't think about retirement as retirement. Think about retirement as a graduation. When we have a college student graduating, think about how many horizons are open to them. Like the world is waiting for them to go get it. And I think you need to think through that same lens. This is a graduation from one season, which could have been a fantastic career, raising children, all of these great things. But this next season of your life can be the most impactful of your life because you have the most financial resources, presumably. You absolutely have the most time of your life, and you have the most experience and wisdom. And so all of these things culminate into this like beautiful combination of you have so much potential. So go out and live it, and your life is going to be transformed, but you're also going to transform the community, your family members, everybody around you at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned synonyms earlier, because when I was researching for this interview, I actually did a synonym search on the word retirement, and you're right. Words like loneliness and isolation came up. Like there were some really negative things that I would never have even thought of. And I'm like, that's not what retirement means to me. But I think you're right. I think people do find themselves in that. So what is the key to to pursue that purposeful retirement? What's the key to that?
Yeah, so in the book After Work, we walk through 10 different keys, and they're all very different. So awe, having a sense of awe is one. Purpose is obviously kind of the gravity that everything revolves around. But I think sometimes it's helpful to have a deathbed conversation with yourself now. So fast forward your life, think that you've lived, this long, happy life, quote unquote happy, right? And you look back and, what would you regret spending more time doing? And what would you regret really hoping that you had spent more time doing? So would you look back and say, man, I wish I would have spent, time playing more pickleball or having more happy hour with friends? Or would you say, I wish I would have spent more time with my grandchildren, teaching them how to fish, or painting, with my children, or whatever it is, or starting a nonprofit and volunteering more and making an impact in somebody else's life. There's so many different things that you can do in this approach, and I think that it's very unique to any one given person. So it's hard to say, hey, here's the roadmap, do XYZ and you'll feel fulfilled and you'll feel like you're full of purpose, right? But I think if you have that kind of that deathbed conversation with yourself, that really brings into context, what is a fun thing that's fun, but it's not lasting, it's not meaningful in your life, and what is truly meaningful, and then home in on those meaningful aspects of your life and just go get them and just get re-engaged in those however you can.
That actually sounds like great advice for anybody to have that conversation so that you can have more of a purpose-driven life, so to speak. Wonderful. There's a lot of wisdom in that, I think. Now, you write about time and structure, of course. So retired people suddenly have more time on their hands, but might be lacking that structure of routine that they once had when they were working, right? So how can they plan and manage their calendar properly?
Yeah, so calendar is an interesting chapter in the book. It's probably the shortest chapter. It's fairly straightforward, but I think a calendar is an interesting tool to use, and not just to fill it with busy stuff, right? Because that defeats the purpose. But I think having a calendar helps you achieve minor goals in any one given day towards some greater goal or undertaking. And so I think having not having a calendar and waking up and just winging it in retirement, saying, hey, it's Wednesday, I slept in, I'm enjoying my coffee, and the next month, my entire calendar is just blank. Like that leads to a lot of indecisiveness and inaction, I think. And so I think as you begin to look at retirement, and even just now, as you start to build a calendar, really try to just implement these fulfilling aspects of life. Like we've got a client who seems like he's always fulfilled. He's a fantastic guy, and he writes, hey, I've got this goal of reading a book every 2 weeks, and I'm reading about all of the presidents, and I'm like doing all of these different interesting things that he's genuinely interested in. And so he actually carves out 2 hours in the morning to read. And so it doesn't have to be this huge goal, start a company and do XYZ and do all of these massive things. It can just be really, really small things. But I think, any audacious kind of big life goal and thing that's going to be really fulfilling is going to be challenging, and it's going to take time and effort. And it's always a culmination of really, really small actions from now until, you've reached your objective. And so I think utilizing the calendar in that way to basically goal set on a really small scale can help you ultimately reach where you want to go.
I would imagine there's sometimes mental health issues can set in retirement. People might find themselves a bit depressed. Do you find that sometimes?
Yeah, the statistics are shocking, actually. When you look at some of the stats about just retirees, like the divorce rate has tripled for age 65 plus since 1990. This large insurance study done by Cigna found that loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And a lot of retirees are very lonely because, for one reason or the other, but I think ultimately connection to others is part of our human fabric. And I think that you really need to lean in, however that looks in your own life, and really lean in and stay connected. And there's another study that we mentioned in the book that's about purposeful connections with others. And it's not about how many connections you have. It's not about being this social butterfly out there with a lot of superficial, relationships, a lot of acquaintances. It's about the depth of your relationships. And so even if there's one person in your life that you have a deep relationship with, how can you make that deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what advice do you have for viewers to avoid that loneliness gap? I mean, you talk a bit about the importance of connecting with others through serving, of course.
Yeah, I think generosity is one chapter in the book where we dig into not only financial generosity but also donating your time towards a worthy cause. But I think there's a lot of noise in our lives, and I think the first step really is to try to turn the volume down on all of that noise. I mean, we all have a smartphone in our pocket with instant news, instant everything about the markets, about your finances, about this or that. And I think you really need to tone down a lot of the distractions, a lot of the things that we feel like we can control but we have no control over. And so I think the control notion in retirement is really interesting, because if you start to take away the things that take up a lot of your mind space that you're trying to control but you simply can't, then you have a lot more energy to spend on the things that are really important in your life that you can control. Like you can control your health to a certain degree. Like you can choose to live a healthy lifestyle. You can control how much time you dedicate to your friends and family. You can't control what happens in the investment markets, or with, taxes or what have you. And so I think focusing on the right things and just trying to turn down the volume on the things that you can't control helps a lot in that regard.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned health and how you can control that, because your book includes a chapter on some very important, practical, but important things. And you're mentioning that movement and exercise, of course, is one of them. So tell us a bit about why this is pretty important. I mean, we all know it's important to exercise, but I think it's probably good for the mind too.
Yeah, it is. And we chose not to title the chapter exercise because that comes with a certain connotation, right? So we chose movement. And I think the basis there is that, for a healthy body and mind, we just need to be active. I mean, I know some folks who are 90 years old who are out there, walking multiple miles a day, and they've got, bad knees, what have you, but they're out there doing it. And when you have a conversation with them, you're like, wow, I feel like I'm just talking with a peer of mine, not somebody who's lived, more than double my lifetime. But then I also meet folks who are, say, 60, who kind of come off as that classic grandma or grandpa type, who are, unhealthy, having just trouble doing normal everyday things. And I'm like, well, what is the delta there? What's the difference between those two? And I think a big part of it is just movement, having an active lifestyle, going out and doing what you can do. And I think it's really important to remember that it's not about anybody else, with this. I mean, it's not about comparing yourself to the Joneses or anything. It's really just about improving you, right? So being the best you can be. So it's not about comparing yourself to anybody else. It's about, hey, if I walked a mile yesterday and I felt okay, how about a mile and 5 steps more? And then eventually you're going to reach this point where, the stairs aren't a problem anymore and you can carry your own luggage or what have you. I mean, I think it's all about improving when you can and where you can as much as possible.
Absolutely. Sounds like your book has all kinds of nuggets of wisdom for sure. Thanks so much for being with us today, Alex. Alex Lippert is the co-author of the book After Work, available at theafterwork.net.
Thanks so much.
Well, we all know that people have different personalities, but do we know to what extent this can impact marital relationships? And perhaps more controversially, there are gender differences which can also impact marriage. Joining us to discuss this is Brent Taylor. He is a Lethbridge marriage coach and the author of His, Hers, Greatest Need. Of course, his and hers with a Z or a Z, which is an interesting way to spell that. Brent, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you. It's again, it's an honor and it's a privilege to be here, and thank you.
Of course. So first of all, can you briefly share a little bit about what you do to help couples improve their relationships?
Right. Um, well, the book started out with discovering, and what I share is his and hers greatest need, um, which you can find in here. And then the single biggest reason why marriages break down, how to build them up. And again, the greatest way a husband loves his wife and the greatest way a wife loves her husband. Those are four key components that I share with them when I first meet with them or I do an introduction session. And that is the big aha. After that, I get into the program that I coach them with, UCG, Understanding, Communication, and Giving. And in that, in the understanding component, there's personalities, love languages, gender, plus values and beliefs. And then in the communication, we do a safe talk, which involves appreciation, sensitive items, and apology talk. I've incorporated the 5 apology languages from Dr. Gary Chapman into the scripting of the safe talk. But the most important part that I work with them on is the giving, UC&G, understanding, communication, and giving. Really, I got to get to the heart. Everybody thinks it's a mindset. And yes, that's true, but it's really a heart set and it boils down to our motive. So that's the biggest area that I get to because most people don't realize how selfish we are.
Oh gosh, yeah, true. You need someone to almost hold up that mirror in front of you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
of course, your book talks so much about the differences between men and women. So I guess before we get to talking about personality and gender differences, you write in your book that the greatest need for a husband is significance. Can you explain what you mean by husbands needing a significance?
Right. Well, kind of the best way I put it is every guy wants to be his wife's hero. Whether he's dating to be married or whether he is married and whether he's 22 or whether he's 62. Sometimes it can subside and things like that, but every guy wants to be his wife's hero. And every woman, she wants to be fought for. So it kind of makes sense that he wants to be her hero and she wants to be fought for. And it's kind of romantic, but I always say when, God created man, he said it was good. And we created woman, he said, whoo, man. And it really is. It's a love story. And yeah, it's not all full of roses and the roses grow better through the manure together. But the reality is deep down inside, he wants to be her hero. He wants to be important to her. And men can have ego issues. Tell me one man that doesn't struggle with ego issues. That's rooted in his desire to be significant. But sometimes it can tip the teeter-totter and confidence is one thing, but also humility and humbleness is another thing.
Mm-hmm. Where does that come from, do you think, that need of significance? I think we all have it, but you speak specifically to men.
Right. Now, women want to be significant as well. It's just not their deep core need. Hers is security, emotional and physical security. And, the man's is significance. It actually goes back to the book of Genesis. It goes back to the fall in the garden. And we kind of amped up our needs. We increased them because we wanted to be independent. We fell away. So there was actually a curse that said, cursed are you, you will toil the land all the days of your life. You can't work hard enough. Basically, he was saying, you want to be independent? I'm going to amp it up a little bit. Same thing with women. You want to be independent? I'm going to amp up your need for security. So it really comes down to that. But if you think about it, if a man's designed to be a provider and a protector, her need for security then falls into line with that protection. He wants to protect her. He was made to give his life for his wife. I use the Titanic. Even in the feminist world, I say, well, let's pretend we got the Titanic and the ship's going down and down and down and down, and you have co-captains instead of one captain. So you got man and woman, and everybody's jumping on lifeboats, and there's only one lifeboat left and room for one more person. Man's looking at woman, and who do you think is going to say, you take the last spot on the last lifeboat? It better be the man.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you think is going to accept the offer?
the woman.
And who do you think is going to have some tears going down her face for how much he loved her because he gave his life for his wife? And so, so that's really the litmus test that he wants to be her protector, her provider. He wants to fight for her, and she wants to be fought for. So it makes, sense that he would want to be her hero, which ties into being significant. Yes, she wants to be significant too, but it's not as deep a core need.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, of course, there are those who would argue that men and women are the same, that there's no real difference. But you, of course, would say that there really are differences in the way our brains are hardwired. Can you explain some of these gender differences?
Well, generally speaking, and it happens biologically at birth or at a very, very young age, boys and girls are wired basically the same. But at a very young age, we're talking weeks old, or even, I don't know if it's might be in the womb, but I think it's after, testosterone hits the brain of a little boy. Massive amounts of testosterone hit a little boy. But in the early stages, they're generally the same. The communication, the verbal interaction, when you're changing their diapers and you're smiling and goo goo gaga over your children, and there's a connection. But because of the testosterone that hits the male brain, it decreases his connection of that verbal, relational, emotional connection, and it increases his tendency for action and aggression. If he's going to be a provider, if he's going to sacrifice his life, then he has to be willing to put himself at the front end of the battle lines to protect his wife and children. That testosterone is necessary. And here's proof. Lots of ladies think, well, my husband just wants me for sex, or they feel used. Well, actually, man was designed to love his wife. A lot of people think God gave man, woman to be his helpmate. Yes, there's merit there, but largely God is a giver of love, and man was made to give his wife love. And he just happens, because of the testosterone, he happens to love physically. Women tend to connect emotionally first before the physical kicks in. They want to trust. They want to feel secure. They want to know things are looked after. They want to know that she can give herself to him. But men come alive physically first, then the emotional, and then women are kind of the opposite. So I would say God's got a sense of humor because they're kind of missing each other here. So there's a hardwired difference between male and female. Another one is, I believe it's the right side of the brain. The little boy's brain is more wired for spatial, how objects move in space. How many women, you're trying to find a house, you're going to go visit some friends, and you think, well, my husband should just ask for directions. And he goes, no. They think, well, he's got ego issues. Maybe a little bit, but also men actually enjoy figuring out how to get from here to here, how things move in space. They want to figure that out. So there's another difference. Ladies, they just want to get from point A to point B. And so there's a spatial arrangement. Ladies tend to be more relational, and guys tend to be more spatial.
Mm-hmm. And want to fix the problems too. So we all know that men like to fix problems, and women just want their husbands to listen to their problems.
Right, because I say, guys, listen with your eyes and zip your lip. And because most men think, why are we talking unless we're solving a problem? And women think, why are we solving a problem? I just want you to listen. Because men love solvingly. So when a husband is solving his wife's problem, he's actually loving her. But she doesn't see it as that. She takes it critically, because here's what most women don't realize. And I just said it to a couple the other day, and immediately she acknowledged and smiled. And I said, she wants to know that he cares about how she feels about the problem. So you don't need to fix the problem. You need to care how she feels about the problem, because she's looking for the heart connection. She's looking, again, for that security. She wants to know that you care about how she feels. So there's a definite difference. Whereas guys say, why don't we just solve the problem? Then you won't have those feelings anymore.
Yeah. It's funny how so many times couples have such different personalities. So like they say opposites seem to attract, right? But apparently the personality differences can cause some serious clashes. So is it important or worthwhile to take time to do a personality analysis in order to understand how we see the world as compared to our spouse?
The short answer is yes. It's definitely worthwhile. When I had my company called BCT Structures, I had to lose my $50 million company. Largest plant built in manufacturing. I know I'm bragging. See, there's the guy's ego. And I had to lose it all. But even when I had it and I was going through all my struggles in life, and I'm a bit of a softie, I wanted this for our employees, not too much of this and none of this. How do we get here? So all of the staff that I hired, I used the personality, and I used True Colors. I didn't know True Colors back then, but I was using this 8 questions. It's now 10 questions that I've expanded it to. It's all over North America. They use it in the school systems. And it's the simplest to use because in the color code of blue, green, orange, and gold, you can tell who's the more sensitive or romantic one, which is important when you're coaching couples. They also have cards for children. They can quickly arrange it in 10 seconds. They know who they are. Personalities is important because blue is sensitive, relational, green is analytical, orange is spontaneity, fun, go for it, and gold is organized and structured. They have their upside and their downside. It's very, very important. Goals are organized and structured and loyal, but they're bossy, controlling, and inflexible. Blues are sensitive, compassionate, and caring. They're bleeding heart and needy and an enabler. So we need to know our greatest strengths to be our greatest weaknesses. So what I do for couples, and I combine their personalities with their love languages. So they get their score on their love languages. So words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. So when you combine those two with the gender, you have a very powerful profile. And I share with the husband and wife how they individually tick, but also where they connect and where they disconnect. When you can understand each other, you can go, oh, that's why they behave and think the way they do. They have a different set of lenses. We also get into upbringing. So our upbringing is a huge manifestation. So it is very wise to understand. Most people think they're going to get it through osmosis. Mm-hmm. No, you need to learn.
Right. So when spouses do have those conflicting personality types, what advice do you have to adjust for this to make things work? Is there anything people need to adjust in their, I don't know, I don't want to say personality, but I guess, yeah.
Good question. The adjustment first comes from understanding. I think there's a huge wall that starts to come down when we understand the way each other thinks and feels and perspectives. So at least you can start to understand it. You don't just criticize or get mad at them for not seeing it my way. That's important. The other thing we do get to, which is huge, is because, as I shared with you before, when we cross our arms, that becomes the comfortable way. But if I was to reverse it, most people struggle to reverse it. That can be comfortable. So it's what we get used to. There's only 2 motives in the world. It's either love or selfishness. It's either what you can do for me or what can I do for you. Most of the time, Christian or non-Christian, we're focused on me, 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 me. We don't know it. That's our number one problem in the world. We're addicted to self. And we're comfortable with it. So we're habitually practiced at it. So I can get to the head and the heart, but if we don't get to the habit, so not only understanding, which helps, then helping them have a communication tool, which I call Safe Talk, but ultimately we need to start practicing giving. And here's the cool part. When we're giving, we're living. Why does it take a high river flood, a Fort McMurray fire, a California fire, a Haiti, Japan, and New Orleans? Why does it take a disaster for us to get off our selfish couches and go give, expecting nothing in return? Expecting nothing in return. So if I can help husband and wife understand each other and they can start giving, expecting nothing in return. And I say, husbands, when you treat your wife right, she blossoms. Can you imagine if husbands and wives started putting the other one first? Because the true definition of love is self-giving, not self-seeking. Love is me last and you first.
Yeah, what a wonderful world it would be. if
Yeah,
if
well,
everyone lived by
that's why Jesus came to give his life. He wanted to show us that not only save us, but show us that love is me last, not me. And when you start to put the other first, when you're giving, you come alive, and the gift is in the giving. So once we realize I was going in the wrong direction.
Right.
And the more I chase the me race, the more empty.
Brent, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom. We appreciate having you on again.
Thank you. And I just want to have that little quote I shared before. I said, if we can put love back in the marriage, we can put love back in the world.
There you go, right there. Brent Taylor is a Lethbridge marriage coach and the author of His, Hers, Greatest Need. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.